Get paid to drive. Start a new career behind the wheel at the EMTA. If you are looking for a high-paying and rewarding career with full benefits and paid training, stop by or apply online today with the EMTA. Plus, EMTA riders can now enjoy free Wi-Fi on new, clean, and environmentally friendly buses to travel all over Erie County. Visit ridethee.com for more information.
Get on board EMTA. Get on board EMTA. Get
Quickfill gasoline is made right here in America. United Refining Company, who operates Quickfill, refines its gasoline from North American crude oil in Warren, Pennsylvania. When you buy United Refining Company gasoline at Quickfill, you keep jobs and businesses in America, and you keep American families strong. You don't need to send your money overseas when you buy gasoline. Buy American-made gasoline at Quickfill. Quickfill, driving America.
Welcome to TalkErie.com's Joel Natale Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast. Every day, we tackle the biggest issues that the Erie PA region faces. Stay informed and involved as we advance the narrative of Erie. Now, here's Joel Natale.
We are going to talk about how to build a fine corporate culture and improving your workplace when it comes to human resources. And I'm really happy to have with us here Stephen Seymour. He's the Director of Personnel Training and Development at Country Fair, and he is the author of the book here, and it's called 100 Ideas to Improve the Workplace, an HR Nerd's Guide to Creating Excellent Culture. Stephen, good to see you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Joel, Shaney. I appreciate being able to come down and talk a little culture with you for a while.
I love it. I love it. Here, we have plenty of time to talk, but let's get to know you. You grew up around here, didn't you?
I did. I born and raised in Northeast, spent most of my life here, graduated from Mercyhurst, started my career in the Washington, D.C. market doing HR in drugstore.
Oh, wow.
And came back here. An interesting story. My wife and I both lost our jobs the same month. The company I was working for went Chapter 11 liquidation, and my wife's company was sold. So we our daughter at that point was 1 year old, and we had a decision to make. So we could have gone to what became North Carolina National Bank and is now Bank of America, right?
Oh,
with my wife.
Yeah.
Or we could have come back to Erie, and we wanted to raise our children here. So we decided to come back to Erie, and it turned out great.
You know, let me go around a rabbit trail with you just on that boomerang part of life. Because a lot of us have gone away, Shaney, me, you, we went away kind of to bring our game to South Beach kind of thing, right? To see what we could do. And a lot of us have had successful careers elsewhere, but there's that draw from Erie. Can you talk about how that felt for you guys?
Well, family had a lot to do with that for us. I'm not a huge fan of winter, but I do like the seasons, of course. We had a strong church family here that we left when we left the area also. So coming back for us was coming back to what we knew as home. I grew up in the grape vineyards, right? And
wow.
So just the smell of Northeast in September was enough to bring me back, Joel, for sure. In 1985, when I graduated from Mercyhurst College at that time, there weren't a lot of jobs here. Mm-mm. And a friend of mine was actually interning for, at that time, Congressman Tom Ridge, and he was working in D.C. And he said, well, why don't you come down to D.C. with me for a weekend and just look around. And I went down for a few days, and before I knew it, I had multiple job offers. And
wow.
So my wife and I got married, went on our honeymoon, and moved to Washington, D.C. within a week and a half's time. And
huge
started
life
our life.
Change. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's fabulous. Yeah. And that seems to go along with what a lot of folks have been able to discover. A lot of my, I went to Mercyhurst Prep. A lot of my folks, have stayed. I mean, my buddy that's in the D.C. area, in Northern Virginia, he had a specific set of skills that were really part of that. so that there's a method to my madness here. When you have those kind of market-driven attractiveness for, the market is attractive for talent. Yeah. How much does that play when you're trying to build a team?
Right. So it's like supply and demand, right? In my case, going down to D.C., there wasn't a lot of demand here for my skill set. I graduated from school with a degree in organizational resource management. There were personnel departments in Erie. There weren't very many human resources departments. And went away for 5 years, was fortunate to get a job in HR. When I came back here, I actually worked for a small video store chain for a little while, and then I was fortunate enough to meet the McGarvey family. They invited me to interview with Country Fair because they were going to start something called Human Resources, and they weren't exactly sure what that was going to look like. And so after several conversations, they invited me to join them. And so now just building that, right? Mm-hmm. For me, HR is three really, really important things. Good HR. First of all, is having the right people in the right seats. I have a chapter in the book called Right Butts, Right Seats. And there are several steps to getting that. And that's probably the biggest challenge we have in our market. As I talk to folks, especially other HR folks that are in other businesses, recruiting, finding people to come to Erie is sometimes challenging. There's could be the weather is typically the big one. I can't find doctors. I can't find attorneys that want to ski.
But Chicago's weather is worse than ours,
right?
But they don't have the problem, of recruiting, right?
Right. And so some of it also probably has to do with being a smaller market. Mm-hmm. My wife and I, our kids, we grew up loving the Otters and the Seawolves, and was there this past weekend. And, we just are into Erie. We love the area. And it's one of those things you kind of do or you don't. But I think the more people that get introduced to us, if you try it, it was that old try it, you'll like it.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
And I think that's what Erie's about at this point, especially if you just look outside and just see downtown. Every time I come down here, we just opened a store down here, and I like to come down and have lunch and just kind of look and see what's happening. And it's just moving and shaking now. It's so different than it was when I was a kid here, for sure.
Even 5 years ago, it's totally changed. But there is that. And maybe this is one of the takeaways, at least that I'd like to share with our audience, is that if you're still of the mindset that you should be able to put an ad in the newspaper or on LinkedIn or
That's funny.
You're laughing at me, but and you'll get bombarded with applicants. That is a narrative that is long gone, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's cyclical, Joel. What I found over the years, people complained during COVID, everyone kind of dove under their mattresses and didn't want to work. And it kind of worked out for us because a lot of our customers dove under their mattresses too and didn't want to shop. So It all kind of balanced out for us. But I can remember in the DC market in the late 1980s, it was harder to find people to work in stores than it was here during COVID. And it's cyclical. Again, you get into the late 1990s. Again, a very difficult time to find help. And then through the 2000s.
So when the economy goes up, it's hard to find help, or
it's
not so much.
It's also cyclical. But we have a lot of leaders out there don't understand now is we have a long-term, bigger problem, and that has to do with the lack of population growth. There are many more people retiring every day than being able to join the workforce. And Bureau of Labor Statistics have some just stunning numbers about what could happen here over the next 20 years. You think it's tough now, it's going to get harder. And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to sit down and write the book on culture. My wife and I joke about this all the time. I'll be married 40 years next month. Pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Great lady. Has her own business. Doesn't have any employees. Does very well for herself. At Country Fair, we have 1,300. In the summertime, it probably goes up to about 1,400 because we bring on summer help, extra help, right? So I always say to her, you can't just have a couple of programs. You can't. It all starts probably with Maslow and Herzberg, with having people make enough money so they can make their rent and get good benefits so that they can
Basic
be healthy.
needs.
Yeah, the basic needs stuff, right? But then after that, what can you provide to folks that will make them want to stay with your organization? You got to provide those basic needs, or they're not going to stay at all. Well, I think at some point most folks caught on. Hey, we're going to provide the basic needs, and so now what can you do to differentiate yourself, right? So that's where a lot of the ideas from the book came. I tell my wife, look, we have 1,300 different associates. They have 1,300 different sets of needs, right?
Wow,
Not everyone has the same set of needs. So you can't have 3 programs and say, oh, look, this is great. I always joke that you had to have 100.
Wow.
And she'd laugh at me and she'd say, there's no way you have 100. There's no way you do 100 different things to get and keep employees. And I'd say, I bet we do. And she'd say, I bet you don't. Our big bet is pizza. And I won't say from where, but so I bet a pizza. So I went down to her office and took her note cards, those big oversized note cards, pack of 100 of them, and I started writing ideas on them. And I flipped through the first, 40 or 50 pretty easy, and then it got a little bit harder. And then I got to about 80 or 85, and I started running out of stuff. So don't tell my wife this. I know she's not listening, honey. Hi. I opened it up to my network. I have a huge HR network, folks here in Erie. The HR groups are awesome, and I also have some through my industry. And I said, throw me out your best recruiting and retention ideas. And before I knew it, I had about 115, and I had to cut it down. So I declared that I won the bet. I probably lost the bet, but we both like the pizza, so it's okay. I reckon we both paid for it too. So that's how it kind of came down to 100 ideas. And then you took each of those note cards and you just started expanding upon them. Well, what do I mean by having an attractive applicant tracking system? If you're in HR, you probably know what that is. If you're not, you might not know what that is.
I want you to say that slowly again.
Applicant tracking system.
Attractive.
Attractive applicant tracking system.
So is this a rating system of applicants?
It's a way to apply. It's a way for people to apply for a job. So when you go on a website, to apply for a job, is it as an appealing site? Does it catch your eye? When you look at the site, does it have the things on it you're looking for? What's the pay? What are the benefits? What are the perks?
But I'll challenge you on that, Stephen, because I can't tell you how many times I'll be looking at a job that's available on Job Connect, for example, and it doesn't say what it pays.
Yeah, so transparency is becoming something. It's become the law in several states. We operate in New York. You've got to post the wage for every job that you.
Oh, so that's the law in New York.
Yes.
Wow.
Now it's not the law yet in Pennsylvania. It might be someday, but we try to do that.
Yeah, you're just telling people what to expect.
Transparency.
How about hours? I hear that you have probably a lot of part-timers, right?
We do, and it kind of divide this into a couple of different groups, right? You have your full-time people that are completely committed to your organization. It's their career. It's really what pays their rent and or their house payment and their grocery bill, and then you have a group that are part-time, and some of them are long-time part-time employees. I can talk about that a little bit if you want. With Country Fair, it's a convenience store. People aren't supposed to stay, right? Well, last year we celebrated 11 25-year anniversaries. This year we celebrated 7, and it's going to keep going like that for quite a long time. People come and people stay if you have the right offering. I want to get back to that ATS though, that applicant tracking system and the attractiveness of it. Some experts say, well, you should be able to complete an application very quickly. And that's part of the attractiveness. And I challenge that. I disagree with that. If someone wants a job with you, they should be willing to take the 10 or 15 or 20 minutes to fill out an application properly, so that it is that it's not going to be one of those things where your name and your phone number and you hit send and you've applied. Not
I have a pulse.
yeah, right.
All right.
Maybe there was a day, but for us that day is past. Again, if you want to have the right people in the right seats, you have to have the right mechanisms in place to get them.
Let me ask you about this, because the other thing I hear about is people that they play the application system or the resume system to hit the keywords, right? So that the algorithm doesn't knock them out.
Right. That's so true. It's funny because, I also teach part-time at Mercyhurst, and I teach intro to HR.
Yeah.
And so I talk with the students because they're all out looking for that first job when they graduate, and they're like, keywords. If I can't fit them all in, I'm just going to take, what do they call it, transparent font, and type them in at the bottom so they get through.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, so they get through the screening process, right? Yeah, that bottom inch, it just has a bunch of transparent words on it, a clear font, right?
Right.
So people try to do that, and you hear both sides of it. You for some positions you might get a lot of resumes, and you try to give your best to all of them. And then some places just make it so easy to apply. Some of the platforms out there, really all you have to do is put your name and phone number in and some keywords, and you have what they call a resume or an application. And so we ask candidates to go to our website and through our portal so they can answer the questions that we want answered and get a feel for our organization before they actually apply.
But do you think, when you look at the industry globally as far as recruitment, that there's a lack of fairness there?
Sure.
Some of it?
And probably the larger the organization, the harder it is, and the more they'll rely on technology and algorithms and things like that. I mean, you can see by the color of my hair, I'm old school with some of that stuff, Joel.
Sure.
And I still believe in people telling us what they're about and us telling them what we're about and trying to make a good match, right?
Yeah.
That's the end of the day. If you want the right butts in the right seats, you've got to go through that process. And then you have to create a culture where they'll want to stay, they'll want to grow. The first offer for another $1 or $2 an hour doesn't just drag them out the door.
Right.
So again, another big reason to write the book.
You call yourself an HR nerd. Come on now. I don't see a pocket protector in that pocket.
Well, here's what I'll tell you. I think I'm a nerd because I read so much. I really do. I start every morning, I read a couple of different HR blogs, and through the day I get different HR emails from sources that I consider valid and reliable. And the other part of it is, I will tell you that I knew I was a nerd the first time Fonzie called Potsy a nerd, and I knew what I was. Your older group listeners will know what I'm talking about. The kids probably not. It was a show called Happy Days, and I watched it when I was a boy.
Sure.
And I knew right then that I was probably the nerd. Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's so cool that you've gotten educated about this and understand the nature of the modern workforce, because you were mentioning you graduated in 85. I graduated in 84. I think unemployment was 16% when I graduated. Yeah. I was going into radio, which paid less than $5 an hour, and that was full time, right? Yeah. And I was lucky to have a job, and so the turnaround from 40 years ago to today is like night and day.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
technology's taken over a lot of that for us, obviously, and just the way their outlook on work, work-life balance is really important now. I was kind of raised, my father would get up and go to work every morning. He worked in a shop, and if he was sick, he went to work. If something was wrong, he went to work. He went to work, right? Mm-hmm. That's what they did, and they worked long hours to support the family. And I kind of grew up, and as I was watching him, just bust his butt, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, do I really want it to be that way? And then I think over generations, and I consider myself a pretty hard worker over the years. I put in a lot of hours and a lot of time, but it's rewarded me greatly. And I still think there's something to be said for a very strong work ethic. I also think there's something to be said for that work-life balance. And I've just been blessed to be able to work for organizations that also believe that. And when you get to kind of help to give the input to set that culture, it helps too, because that's just something that's always been in my heart. We have some managers that put in hours. We have some associates that put in hours. But at the end of the day, flexibility is important. And the folks I work for have been that way to me, and we try to reflect that too. And I make it a point in the book to talk about that. There are a lot of organizations out there working a 4-day work week. Some working a 3-day work week.
Wow.
3/12s, and you can work another half day or a third of a day. If you can do that, it's an awesome thing. We have people working from home, right? That, of course, got very popular during COVID, and it got difficult in some areas where they kind of needed people to come back to the office. There was some pushback there, but I think it's kind of worked itself out now where people who can work from home are continuing to work from home and do it well. I'll use my wife as an example. She has her own business. She works from home. She goes to work every morning to the basement and comes up at lunch to feed the cat and have lunch and then goes back to the basement. You know? And some folks can do that corporately. I have relatives that work for insurance companies, and they can be on a headphone and a phone line helping customers all day long, and that's wonderful. And they can do that from their home. So
it's remarkable. I've got like a minute and a half before the break, but I want to ask you, what do you think is the most controversial idea for improving the workplace that you've encountered on the feedback for this book? What are people saying? Oh, no way, Steve.
So a big one I think is education, continuing ed. I think that there are still a lot of folks out there that don't think that they need to grow their people, that the right person's just sitting out there still for them, and they can go and just pluck that person out of the air and bring them in. And we don't think that way at all. We focus a lot on training and development. Just took a couple of guys that we hired for our construction crew that have great hands and good minds, and sent them to electrical school. And one graduated in May, he's a journeyman electrician. The other one's going to graduate next May.
And you're not scared that he's going to go and get the big gig?
Of course I'm a little scared he's going to go and get a bigger gig, but hopefully those gentlemen will remember who put them through, and loyalty's a trade-off, right? If they're showing loyalty to us, we have to show loyalty to them too.
Well, it's a pretty enlightened approach to working with people, isn't it?
It's just different than it was in the 70s, 80s, and even 5 years ago. COVID changed a lot of things too.
You have been called
to do good,
to feed the hungry,
to love with action,
to be a light in the darkness,
to love your neighbor,
to teach wisdom,
to walk humbly,
to love mercy,
to care for the least of these.
Will you accept the call?
This is our city.
Our mission.
Visit eriecitymission.org/volunteer to accept the call today.
All year round, Frontier Home Products and Design has what you need to make your home comfortable and beautiful. Relax on a new timber tech deck designed by Frontier's experts. A new fireplace from Frontier Home Products Fireplace Gallery adds warmth and serenity to any home. Beauty and versatility at Frontier Home Products and Design Center, 4213 Peachtree, East 5th, next to the Bayfront Highway.
Frontier Home Products and Design Center. Discover a new frontier.
PA contractor number PA039007.
I want to get into the nitty-gritty in this second half hour here about the book, and you talk about, that there's kind of 5 phases to the book. Can you explain that?
Yeah. Well, it all starts with a few presumptions, and one is that turnover is expensive.
That's true. Wow.
And so, for us, even an entry-level associate that's part-time, it could cost us up to $3,000 just. And so if you instead of having all that turnover, if you just take some of that money that you'd be spending on turnover and put it into some creative programs, maybe you could reduce that number a little bit. So I talk about that a little bit, but then there's a lot of recruiting, again, trying to get the right person into the right seat in your organization, which is really important. There's a good unit on pay and benefits, which obviously is very important also, and that kind of breaks down and along with benefits, even more perks and programs that maybe differentiate you from your competitors. And just lots and lots of examples, whether it's swag or T-shirts or company picnics, or I mean, this is my grandfather's watch that he got from A.O. Smith here, Smith Meter Company in Lawrence or Wesleyville in the 1960s for his 25th or 30th anniversary, and I still wear that.
That's fantastic.
He's been gone a long time. So I talk about that, and then at the end, I also just talk about good, solid leadership, which I think is really important. Folks, they'll come on to your company because they like the look of your brand, or you're reputable, or they know your brand, but they'll typically leave a poor leader or a subpar leader. And so that training and development is really, really important for organizations like ours. Especially, we spend a lot of time on training and trying to get our managers to be good leaders.
There was a fad probably 20, 30 years ago about flat organizations. We need to make it flat. And then you have like one person with 100 direct reports, and it didn't work. And it makes you wonder if maybe the military has it right, where you're right down to the squad, and then the platoon, and then the company, and so on. I mean, what's been your experience?
I never bought flat, Joel.
You never bought flat?
I never bought flat. No, you have to have structure.
Yeah.
And maybe I just needed structure. I don't know. Maybe they're obviously, I'm one of 1,300 or 1,400 employees at my company, and I have a different set of needs too. Maybe one of mine is structure. Folks think differently, and they have different ideas on these things. And really, what I'll tell you is, if it works for your company, do it. Right? For us, I think structure is important.
Yeah, there's no. Well, you want to know where you can get an answer, and not have to wait too long for that answer.
Absolutely.
Because again, that good employee wants to have excellent customer service, and that's really what this is about, isn't it?
Right, sure. And what I'll tell you is that good people want to work for good companies. And I just think that just rings so loudly. And so be good. And what I mean by good is be good in your community, right? Be good to your customers and be good to your employees. If you're good to your employees first, they're going to be good to your customers, and then be good to your community. They support you. I mean, I want people to love our brand. So we have to be out in the community doing things and sponsoring things and supporting the community that's coming in every day and shopping our locations. And it's like that for any company, whether you're a retailer or a manufacturer or anyone. You should be playing those three things hard. Your employees, your customers, and your community. You want to be good. If you're good people will want to work for you. I think that's for certain.
You mentioned pay and benefits, and of course that's hugely important. Yet it's not necessarily what motivates everybody. What's been your experience about motivation?
Well, so I don't know that you can motivate folks until they can pay their rent. Right.
Maslow.
If you don't have money to eat, then it's difficult to motivate folks. But I think there are programs on top. There's been a few hot things just over the past few years. One is something called earned wage access. I don't know if you've heard of that, where people can actually pull down a part of their paycheck in advance through a third party. We use a company out there called Zayzoon, and there's no fee to the company for this, and our employees can, for a very small fee, less than it would cost you to cash a check at many places, you can get a limited withdrawal on your check in advance. I saw a stat somewhere that said like 50% of people call off work because they're out of fuel, because they don't have gas money, right?
Wow.
So with earned wage access, you go to your website, you pop down $20 and you put it in your tank and you can go to work. Or suppose you have an emergency, the battery on your car dies and you don't have money till payday. Well, if you can't work, you're not going to earn the money you need to get the battery. I mean, it just gets ugly, with such a high percentage of people living paycheck to paycheck. That's something that our employees really liked.
And it really doesn't. It takes it out of the payday loans and their use, or those horrible interest rates and things. Put a headset on, because I think we're going to get a phone call in here. Hey, you're live with Steve Seymour here on Talk Erie.
Really fascinating conversation. You know, you don't really own a business until you hire your first employee, right?
Hey, man.
Everything changes when you have more than one. It's not you. I do have a lighter question on the lighter note. You'll probably like to answer. What the heck kind of watch did your grandfather get that it's still running all these years later?
Actually, it's a self-winding Movado.
Self-winding Movado.
Wow. Yes.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, DHB, the A.O. Smith Company. He received it for 30-year service in 1967.
God bless.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
wow.
So I hope my son will wear it someday.
That's
the good old days of Erie manufacturing don't get started.
Well, and those rewards for longevity are important. That's a chapter in the book. I fully believe in that.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. What about that longevity? When you're talking about, short-term goals or short-term rewards, long-term rewards, what's appropriate, I mean, I'm thinking about, in the nonprofit space, maybe there's not a ton of money to do this stuff.
Probably not, but be a good boss. You don't have to have a ton of money. One thing I do is there's a group that I work with at Country Fair, obviously, and on their anniversary, they get a text message from me. They all have company phones. They get a text message from me. Thanks for being part of the team. I appreciate all you're doing for us. Something little like that goes so far. Mm-hmm. If you can do more, do more. I love recognizing length of employment. I also love recognizing good deeds. We have an above and beyond program where if someone goes out of their way to help a customer do something special, they're going to get a special pin and they're going to get a gift card and they're going to get a letter that's signed by me thanking them. And anyone can nominate anyone in our company for that award. Maybe someone's got a flat tire in a parking lot. Maybe it's a little old lady that needs help with her bags out to her car. We still do that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. We still believe in that. And but it's still good to recognize it when people are doing that kind of stuff. Now you're getting me lit up. Now here we go. Let's go.
Talk about one of the big things that a lot of folks especially in customer service heavy businesses, is that the business is short staffed, and you as a customer, I'm coming there, and it's just the two of us back here, that kind of thing. I think I was just, at a fast food place, and I think I waited 15 minutes for something that I know their timer was going off, right? Yeah. What's the employer's responsibility on just making sure that workforce levels are up to speed?
Yeah, right. So we have to do our best to have as many good people in place as we can every day. I'm sure that happens at my company on occasion. Someone gets sick. Mm-hmm. During COVID, it was brutal because all of a sudden you'd have a store with COVID. I do want to point out something and I don't want to get too far off track here, but we had 1,300 associates during all of COVID. We had no associates pass away. No one died. We had a few go to the hospital. We had a lot of people got sick. But we were very proactive in getting shield guards up, like within a week.
Wow, yeah.
And getting protective
the PPE
out to our employees very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. Again, that is an action, that's a corporate responsibility that we knew we needed to take. We didn't know. I didn't take Pandemic 101 at Mercyhurst. I'm sure you didn't at Cannon either, Joel. And so we didn't know what to do. We listened to everybody else and tried to listen to our folks at the county and at the state and at the federal levels and do the best we can. But at the end, I got to thinking about this here as actually in New York. I think finally July 1st, the final COVID rules went out of commission.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was just so thankful that everyone lived, at CoFair. It was a big deal to us in that regard. But yeah, we have a responsibility. Our positions on our website are evergreen. We And what I mean by that is anyone can apply at any store at any time. We don't limit where you can apply to, right?
Okay.
So when our managers see a good quality person, we ask them to jump on them. I actually have an intern, and Maddie is her name. All Maddie does is look at the applications that come in every day on our applicant tracking system and call managers and say, hey, I don't know if you've looked at your ATS at your store today, but you have a hot one. You should get on the phone.
Wow.
Can I help set up an interview with you? And then we have stores some stores staff very, very well. Other stores run short. Some stores, the location, in some of our locations, I use Grove City for an example. There are more retail jobs in Grove City because of the factory outlet mall than there are citizens of Grove City. So it makes it hard, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of little towns like that where we operate. Springville, New York is another one. It's kind of at the end of a highway, a tourist town. And not many residents in the town, but it's grown up along that strip so much that really is hard to find people. You have to go to extreme measures to find and keep people.
Talk to me about the generations, and we were talking about motivation. Maybe for that post-retirement person that just wants to make a few dollars. I just want 2 days a week, give me 6 hours a day, and I'll be there forever.
So two things
versus the young one that wants as many hours as they can get.
Yeah. So come in and make breakfast sandwiches a couple mornings a week. Our customers love those, and we have folks who've been like me. I've been getting up at 5 a.m. for a good part of my life, and even on Saturdays, sometimes I'll wake up at 5 a.m. and stare at the ceiling until I figure out I should probably get up and do something or go back to sleep. Right.
Yeah.
And so you have that. And then we also have facility caretakers at our location. So we have a lot of retired folks that come in, clean the gas pumps off, sanitize things. Sure. So, we still have a lot of those folks out there. We had a lady retire last year. I want to say she was 83. I think she was the oldest at the time. I'm not sure what it is now. It's late 70s for sure. I can think of a couple. And maybe one in their 80s that's actually still an assistant manager with us.
Wow.
So
that's fabulous.
People come and stay. The younger folks, again, some kids, it's their first job. Mm-hmm. So we're going to train the heck out of them and, try to bring them up to speed. We do all of our orientation, which I think is really important, not just training, but orientation. So the onboarding process is very specific at your organization.
Absolutely. How important is that for managers, for owners to say, let's take a week and figure this onboarding thing out?
Yeah. So we're going to put into a new employee in a store that has alcohol about 48 hours.
Seriously?
Yeah. So they're going to come to a full day of orientation. They're going to work with a professional trainer, not a store employee, but a professional trainer that works in our corporate office out at a store level with them for 2 days. Then they're going to work with a designated trainer at their store for 2 more days. And then, of course, they have some learning. We have a learning management system, and that's talked about in the book too, LMS, and how important that is. There's a lot of video training available, and so we do a lot of our compliance training via our LMS. For example, your harassment training, your age restrictive training, things like that. And then the PLCB in northwestern Pennsylvania, if you're selling alcohol, you've got to go through PLCB training, which is another half a day.
Wow.
We're going to invest a lot into people. But from day one, we want them to understand our mission, what we're about, and the expectations that what they can expect from us and what we should be able to expect from them. It's a trade. It's okay. We're paying folks, and so we can have expectations. It's all right.
Sure.
I don't know if you're aware, this Gallup does a survey every year. They've been doing this survey since 1999, and it's on employee engagement. 2025 numbers just came out, Joel, and you can look at them when you have some spare time ever, right? Can you believe 18% of the American workers, now they're not, Gallup's not interviewing their bosses, they're interviewing them, via survey, right? 18% of American workers say that they are completely disengaged at work.
Wow.
And to a point where they really don't understand why their employer is still putting up with them. Only about 30% of employees say that they are 100% engaged at work, that they're giving you 100% every day. That middle 50 are the semi-engaged, right?
Yeah.
So the goal obviously is to try to get those semi-engaged to fully engaged, and then that 18%. There's a chapter in the book about cutting bait on people who are not performing, so they don't drag down the people who are performing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really, really important. Here's the trick, and here's the problem. In 25 years that the surveys come out, Joel, those numbers have varied very little.
So we haven't moved the needle on engagement.
We haven't moved it.
Oh, wow.
We haven't moved it. And if you want engagement, you've got to have culture.
I feel like so much of this is about either refusal or an inability to use the best practices that you are talking about. What I'm hearing that you do, I'm hearing that from the best, when you study companies. You study a Wegmans. They're considered the number one workplace in America. You study a, what is it? Erie Insurance. Yeah. What about hotels? Ritz-Carlton or one of the really big, highly defined chains. There's an expectation that a customer receives, and they get it because the training is so there.
Yeah, it's sort of a 4-quadrant thing, right? You have people that have great abilities and a great attitude. Mm-hmm. They're going to be your superstars, right? And then you have people that have great abilities and a bad attitude, and those are hard.
Yes.
Then you have people that have no skills and no attitude, which you got to get them out quick. But then you have folks that have a great attitude, but their skill level's not there. And those are the folks that you can work with, you can train. If someone has the right attitude, we're going to figure it out with them. Very, very few occasions do we have to let someone go just because they can't grasp the job. Mm-hmm. The job in and of itself is not incredibly difficult. It's very, believe me, it's a lot harder than people think it is working at one of our stores. But I think if you train people and you put effort, time into them, talk about career growth opportunities, which is really, really important. A lot of folks that come to us aren't seeking higher ed. They started as a part-timer and they really don't know what they're going to do with their lives in some cases. And we have a home for them.
Yeah.
We are a big, big open tent, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. Anyone that wants to help us accomplish our mission of taking care of our customers is welcome at our company.
Talk about, we're running out of time with Stephen Seymour here. Talk about this concept. Well, kids just don't want to work.
So my great-grandpa said that about my grandpa. My grandpa said that about my dad. My dad said that about me, and I probably said that about my son. Don't think I've ever said it about my daughter.
She'll get back at you.
But it's something that every generation talks about, right? Mm-hmm. But then we find nuggets within every generation. There, you find people rise to the top. It's not a generational thing. It's a leadership thing, really. Good leaders produce good people. They train them, they develop them, they grow them, they invest in them. They communicate well with them. They serve them. Servant leadership is so important in our business and in all businesses. If you're a leader anywhere, you should be a servant leader. I think that's chapter 100.
You give the team all the credit when stuff goes well, and you take all the blame when it goes poorly.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Fascinating book, 100 Ideas to Improve the Workplace, an HR Nerd's Guide to Creating Excellent Culture. Stephen Seymour, Director of Personnel at Country Fair. Thank you so much. And how's the store doing down here?
Store's doing great. I do want to let folks know they can pick this up at Werner.
Okay,
or on Amazon. The folks at Werner have been awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you know them.
Yeah.
And they've just been awesome. Local providers for local authors, but the store downtown right here on North Park Row, we're so pleased.
You got a lot of people in there. You must have you're doing a lot of training stuff, but you must be having the traffic. It sounds like.
Yeah, it's going so well, and
awesome.
The EDDC has been awesome. The folks around the neighborhood have been awesome. You were there at our grand opening. That's
absolutely.
where we met,
and I've been there several times since. Believe me. Yeah.
And we're just so looking forward to seeing. I mean, it's doing great now. We're really looking forward to see what happens when Gannon gets back.
There you go.
And it's been wonderful. It's been great to be part of this several blocks of Erie that's just so on the rebound, so on the comeback. It's just so cool to see our city like that.
Part of the solution. Yeah. Thank you so much, Stephen. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to The Joel Natale Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast from TalkErie.com. Subscribe to our show on your favorite podcatcher and get involved by emailing joel@TalkErie.com.